Ladies and gentlemen, the beat goes on.
Turn it up.
What you're about to hear may cause your speakers to explode.
Grant's Rock Warehaus is keeping it real in the feed.
Get ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehaus, and tonight we are talking Kiss the Elder. Is this career suicide or Gene and Paul's middle finger to the Kiss Army? We're going to take a look at this record. We have a great panel here. We want to hear from you in the chat. Hell, there might even be a poll. All right, here we go. Let's do it, Kiss.
Serving up riffs hotter than Hellfire Chili with a beer chaser. Grant's Rock Warehaus.
All right, everybody, we are live, and look at this panel. We are talking Kiss the Elder tonight. This is fantastic. We're talking 1981, the hottest band in the world. Face paint, platform boots, party anthems, millions of records sold, and they decided to throw it all out the window. No more Kiss formula. Instead, they dropped a dark orchestral concept album with choirs, narrators, and full-blown comic book fantasy storyline. Kiss Army lost their minds, and so did the charts. So, look at this panel. Like I said, man, we've got Alexploitation. Don't get him confused with Uncle Meat, that he filled in for Uncle Meat last night.
Never
he
again.
is here on his own. We've got, ladies and gentlemen, don't get the Elder of Rock confused with the Elder, the album.
I'm going to get confused because everybody's going to say the Elder, and I'm going to think, wait, you're talking about me? Or
Exactly. Yeah, you're going to do a double take. We got West Coast Dave here.
Hi, greetings. Good evening.
Look at him. And we have Brendan from, what's your podcast?
Disturbing the Priest. Hello.
Disturbing. I should know that by now.
It's okay.
Got Brendan from Disturbing the Priest. We are here, and we are going to talk the Elder. Now, this is a controversial record, like I just said. We're going to do a poll. I'm going to throw the poll up, and let's see if we can get some interaction on this. We want to hear actually, let me look at and see who's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Cretin is here. He is awake. You know, he works all week, but on Monday and Tuesday is the only time you can get him. He's here. We got Webb here, fresh off of mowing his yard. He is here. Lee's here. Lee's nice to see it. Look at this. Dan is here. My buddy. Dan, how are you? Nice to see you. Bobo is here. We've got like 38 people watching so far, so I'm already excited. Rome loves Dan. Yes. Fantastic. Jay is here. Kathy, love you. So glad you're here. All right, everybody. We're just going to keep this going. Oh, yeah. Cretin's on vacation. Cretin went to see a Tranquility Fest, and it was canceled, but he went anyway. I went to Philadelphia, did that. George, nice to see you. Thanks for coming. All right, let's do this. So, like I said, this was a very polarizing release. We're going to get let's do this first. Let's throw the poll up. I want to see what everybody says on this. And it is Music from the Elder. Was this career suicide, or was this giving the middle finger to the Kiss community? So I'm going to create it. We're going to throw it up there. It's up there, kids. You see it in the lower left. We want to hear from you. So in order to take the poll, you either type a 1 or a 2. So we do want to get your thoughts on it. I actually should put another. Maybe we should do another poll. Nah, let's just leave it like that. Let's keep it controversial. Anyway, so we want to go around the panel. We're going to get everybody's thoughts on this record and what they think of it. We'll go Alex, we'll go to the Elder, we'll go to Dave and Brendan, and we'll just loop around. Alex, thoughts on the Elder? It's controversial. I have a feeling you may like it, but you might not.
I do like it.
Okay.
And I have lots to say on this, believe it or not. Unusual. First, let me say, I grew up in the 70s as a kid, a Kiss fan.
more so the visual aspect of it and the merchandise, as in the costume and the lunchbox and so forth that's behind me. But then when I got into music in the 80s, I remembered the name and I got into the band in a big way. So I absorbed the stuff from the 70s, but then really got into the band in the 80s. And I've always liked this album. So this is their 9th album, not counting the solo material. And this is first with Eric Carr, right? Peter Criss is out of the band. So let's talk about what came, is my man. Let's talk about what came before this. So everyone thinks we hear The Elder and it's a travesty and it's horrible. And how could Kiss do that? Well, let's look at this, right? First, we had the solo albums, which was the start of the beginning of the initial end, right? In that very diversified, some weird stuff on there. Gene Simmons, Wish Upon a Star. I mean, this was not the heavy Kiss. And then we get Dynasty, or as some of our contrarian friends say, Dynasty, right? And we have a little bit of disco, at least on one song. So that's different. Then we get Unmasked, which is a pop album. This is not Destroy. This is not hard rock. So what I say is, leading up to The Elder, we've already seen some backtracking, some discrepancies in their sound. And then this comes out and it's weird for Kiss. It's a concept album. And what is it? It's a young boy's destiny to become a warrior battling evil that was threatening to destroy the universe. And you say, what a weird, convoluted story. But keep in mind, Kiss were comic book characters. Gene Simmons was a comic book fan. So this is not a crazy concept. And I would say to you, in the context of concept albums, what if we were talking about a young boy who was deaf and blind and played a pinball machine? Would you think that's crazy? But that's considered a masterpiece, right? So I think the big problem was Kiss had, before this came out, said, we're going heavy. It's going to be back to our roots. And what happens is Bob Ezrin comes back into the picture, who did Destroyer, and now things change. He's coming off of working on The Wall. He says, I think you guys should do a concept album. Kiss decide that they want to show, not their fans, but prove their critics wrong, in that they can be an art band. They can be a real band and make a statement. So to that point, I go back to Ezrin and Destroyer, which very few are going to say this is a bad Kiss album, right? This is Bob Ezrin. This is not what came before it. There's a song on here called Great Expectations. Could that not fit on The Elder? I mean, that's not your tried and true Kiss song. So again, we're talking about a band that already assumed the role of characters wearing makeup. And this is a band that many times jumped on the bandwagon, didn't start it, right? Disco or hair metal, or if you know, Carnival of Souls, grunge. So this was a band that are already wearing different hats and portraying characters. So to me, for them to do something like this in the context of a concept album, why not? This is them being, theatrical. And back on Destroyer, there was a choir, there was an orchestra. So those elements, again, were on Elder, and people listened to Elder and said, oh my gosh, why are they doing this? They had already done that, not in the context of a concept album, but the elements were already there. So the big issue I have with this is not the music, and it's the way it was handled. So Polygram absorbs Casablanca shortly before this album comes out. So now Kiss, who had control of their own destiny and could do what they wanted, now a major label was over them, and Kiss was not the Kiss that it was. So the label was kind of taking liberties, and they changed the order of the songs on the album, supposedly without Kiss knowing about it. And then Gene later says, oh, this was horrible and embarrassing when we found out. I call bullshit. You were involved in this. You're Gene Simmons, right? And by the way, I'm wearing a bootleg shirt, Gene, in just in case you wondered. This was $16, not $45. So,
no.
But so think about what I just said. So it's a concept album telling the story with a linear track listing. And the label now rearranges it because they think it's more radio friendly the way that they're doing it and putting the hits up front. And now it makes no sense. So if you had Tommy or if you had The Wall and you took out pieces and shuffled around, what sense does that make? So the other weird thing is it wasn't like that everywhere. So in the States, we got this. And again, in the States, no Kiss, right? So now we're talking about the band that is selling their image. And now we just have a door knocker. But when you go to Japan, the album order stayed the same as Kiss intended it, except they removed one track, which was an instrumental. They make that a B-side of The Oath. And they put this on the front cover. So that's what you saw when you bought this in Japan. You at least saw the band. Yes, they have haircuts and streamlined outfits and so forth, but you're at least getting Kiss. So from the start, this was doomed in that the label messed things up. The band, let's say, wasn't as hands-on as they should have been, and you're rearranging a story. You're doing it in different markets, in different orders. All of that leads to disaster as far as I'm concerned. I won't go into the rest of the songs or anything unless we kind of go around. I've taken up enough time, but
I probably didn't explain it well enough. I was just thinking we'll start out with Alex. I want to keep this interactive. So anybody who wants to talk, just kind of, it's like, this is the way I envision the show. If we are all hanging out at the record store, just yapping about Kiss the Elder. So just feel free to, I started off with Alex because he had everybody saw the damn email. Good Lord Almighty, how could you not start out with him? But we're just trying to keep this interactive and like we're all hanging out at a record store. I do want to say something real quick, Alex, about a point that you made. If Kiss had done The Elder after Destroyer, I think things would have went differently because people would have been set up for that. It's a perfect record to come right after Destroyer. For them to do Dynasty after Destroyer, I'm just saying.
Let me just say this
what I mean now.
real
Rock
quick
and
about
Roll
that.
Over and all that, Love Gun and all that. But you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it would have fit in right perfectly after Destroyer.
One thing we have to remember is Kiss may act like the biggest band in the world, and as far as merchandising, yes, Destroyer went double platinum. The rest of their discography mostly was either gold or just platinum. We're not talking a band that ever sold 5, 10, 15, 20 million copies of any one record. So the drop off in sales, it wasn't that big of a deal. And also we're looking at a period of everyone has a shelf life. So by the time The Elder came out, the kids of the 70s had grown up. They moved on. New wave of British heavy metal came in. It was just everything lined up that this, even if it would have been the best Kiss album they ever put out, people still might not have paid attention because Kiss was passe at that point.
Right. Alex, what song was removed? So you said an instrumental. Was it Escape the Island?
Yeah, the Escape was removed from the Japanese and put as the B-side of The Oath. So again, you take an instrumental off of that, it's not a big deal, but at the same time, why take one song off of a short album anyway? So it's just weird the way the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's a single LP too for like a concept album. It's only like 40 minutes.
So, but that's also part of the problem. There was more narration. There were other songs. It was going to be a bigger project. It was going to be a movie. I will recommend, and Brenda Snyder just did a review of this. This is a fan done.
Let me make
double.
that big. Go ahead.
So
talk about it.
That's a fan done double disc version of what The Elder could have been or maybe should have been. So songs that were cut were added to this. There's some demos. This is a reimagining. So it may not have ever come out in this format, but what we got with The Elder from Kiss originally was not the original vision or intent. And I think it also would have been received much better had it been in its full format and not messed with. So we're looking and reviewing something that came out in a totally different form from what the band intended it to be.
Yeah, I agree. But think about Kiss and how much records they were selling at this point. You got Dynasty, which was a success, but then Unmasked didn't sell. By the time you get to this, I don't think that Polygram. What? Go ahead.
Your Chris leaving shows like there's a fracturing in the band. Something's going on. Yes, they get Eric Carr, but then his first album is The Elder, and it's kind of like he doesn't really do anything spectacular. Like I consider like this, The Creatures of the Night, maybe his first real album because he's really able to show what he can do. But I also thought so the tour, and there's never a tour for this, but I always thought, like, how was the tour for this going to be? Because were they going to play like the Elder album and then play their hits? Because to mix their hits in between Elder songs doesn't seem right, because it doesn't seem to go along with the concept. And I always thought how weird that might have been to do the tour for Elder if it ever happened. You know,
well, online you can actually see sketchings of what they wanted the tour to look like stage props and everything. Like this band was so far up their ass when making this album that they were focusing on the tour and all this in the movie and less about the music, in my opinion. There were so many ambitious concepts.
They sure dropped those plans real quick.
Right.
I don't think they had the budget, you know?
Not at all.
Keep on, a lot of the concept of the album was Ezrin too. So I think Ezrin might have been more invested than the band even was.
Well, he wasn't even there. He was inhaling the world's supply of cocaine during the entire making of this album.
Well, so was Ace.
Yeah.
Right.
He was heavily involved in the writing, just like he was Destroyer. And we should mention there is a tie-in to the last episode because our good buddy Lou Reed co-wrote several songs on this album as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if someone was going to bring that up. I was laughing my ass off when I found that.
Right. I forgot about that. That's right. Yeah.
The kiss of death for rock collaborations.
Yeah, well, it didn't work out for Metallica.
Well, he's dead now, but if Lou Reed would have asked you right away.
May he rest in peace.
Well, and if this would have had more in Lou input and he said, I am the table, Gene would have said, you can be a table, but put a Kiss logo on it and charge $249. Then it would be okay.
Lou Reed would have been the table and Bob Ezrin would have snorted coke off.
Jay has a point.
I don't think this album would have done well after Destroyer, because a lot of the hardcore fans didn't like Destroyer at that time.
Don't forget Destroyer, when it initially came out, was a failure. They released Beth as a single that invigorated it. You know, Gene and Paul, this is how they operate. If the album sells, they love it. If the album doesn't sell, they hate it. And they didn't like Destroyer when they had the finished product until it took off. So,
well, to that point, remember Carnival of Souls, their grunge album, was shelved, and then it became a bootleg. And once the bootleg was popular and everyone was buying it, then Gene said, hey, we better put this out ourselves. So 100% on that.
You can just tell the cracks are in this album. Like even on Dark Light, like the soloing from Ace, it just sounds so frustrated and just fed up. You know,
well,
even in the music itself.
I love this record. This is actually I hate this. Well, I don't hate. I'm proud. I love this record, but it's almost like if you compare this to like the Beatles' White Album, it seems like you really have a Gene song. You've got a Paul song. Yeah. You've got Ace Frehley doing his own thing in his own studio. But even though the band is fractured, I still think it's a cohesive record, just like the White Album. But you can hear that they're not working together, you know? I mean, you might even be able to say that with Dynasty. I mean, does that album even sound like they're really working together, like Love Gun or anything?
Except for Peter Criss wasn't around for a while. But yeah, I think for the most part of Dynasty, they were kind of a little reinvigorated. They are back together after the solo albums, and they maybe were a little invigorated. And I think you could tell there's still some chemistry on that album.
But to your point about the Beatles, you know, I think if we just accepted the Beatles from where they started and where they ended, they were a radically different band. We didn't mind. Right. We don't change. Miles Davis, Prince did many different styles of music. That was okay. But Kiss sort of just got pigeonholed into, we only want this rock and roll band, even though they had done some other things before. But when it all came together in a concept album, and like I said, they were already on a downward slide anyway. So it just was a recipe for disaster. But I agree with you. I love the album myself.
Oh, I love the record. I think it's got some of Ace Frehley's best guitar work on it. I swear to God. Ace sounds fantastic on it. Now, I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's cracks forming, you know, but, you know.
It's debatable who played with solos on what songs.
Right. Yeah, but you can tell Ace Frehley when Ace plays. He has a identifiable sound that no one else has. That's the greatest. That's the great thing of Ace Frehley.
Bob Kulick filled it for many years on Alive too, so I don't know.
But that doesn't sound like Ace Frehley. It sounds like Bob.
Yeah, I thought that was Ace. I thought that was Ace on Alive too, definitely.
Like I was reading that Gene Simmons played the solo on Mr. Blackwell. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell the difference who's playing guitar on this album, but I really do like the guitar on this album when they solo. And then I heard
solos for sure.
My God. Really, Byron? You stopped listening to Kiss when you got pubes? Do you really have to go there?
That's when I started listening to Kiss.
My God. What the hell kind of people are we letting in here?
Grant, you grew up a Kiss fan?
Who, me?
Grant, yeah.
100%.
Right.
I was in, baby.
When the album came out, what did you think of it when it came out?
Well, by this time I gave up. I didn't pay attention. I came on when Destroyer came on, and I was all the way good through Dynasty. I remember my buddies, we'd sit and play every Kiss album that came out. And a lot of people have talked about how Dynasty was a big departure. But when we were kids and we listened to it, it was just another Kiss album. We totally embraced it. And we didn't really see anything too different than, anything else.
Like I said, that was their first album after the solo album. So this is their kind of like their comeback, their first, their return. So Dynasty was a big deal in that aspect. And then, so I think that kind of helped propel I Was Made for Loving You a little bit. I never, like a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind it.
I like it. Yeah. What's everyone's favorite Kiss album?
By the time Music from the Elder came out, I'd moved on to something else, a lot like everybody else. So,
out of curiosity, what's everyone's favorite Kiss record? Just to add some context.
Wow.
I'm Dynasty, but the debut is a very close second.
I think I would go over rock and roll over. I think is probably my favorite.
Hotter Than Hell is where it's at for me.
I'm going to go Hotter Than Hell and then Music from the Elder. That's where I go. I swear to God.
Wow.
I don't know.
West Coast Dave is not a big Kiss fan. So
I'm not a Kiss fan, and I'm not a Kiss hater. People always say you either love them or hate them. I've always just been kind of, I don't know. This is probably my favorite Kiss album now. I tried so many times with Kiss Alive, and I don't get it.
Jay looks like a hot in the shade kind of guy to me.
Well, before the show, I was saying when I was growing up, I had to look it up, and I had to Animalize because those were on MTV, and I had those on cassettes. That was back in the Walkman days.
Yeah.
So I had those and the Billy Squier albums and all that other kind of stuff, but I was never like a big Kiss fanatic. So that's why I thought this show would be kind of interesting because I had never heard this before. We decided to do this show.
Well, that's why I like you here, Dave, because it's nice to have an outsider perspective.
You're right. I don't have any context. What
songs stand out to you on this album?
Yeah. What was your initial thoughts when you played it?
Well, initial thoughts, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, when it started, I kind of thought that they were trying to sound like The Who a little bit with the Just a Boy song. I mean, if we're going to start at the very beginning, Fanfare, I probably listened to this album 6 or 7 times. When I listened to it for the last time last night, I actually laughed out loud when Fanfare came on. The monks chanting, that's just kind of ridiculous. I don't think they really needed that. I think they were trying to put themselves in some kind of elevated category, like, okay, what's coming next is like important, But I mean, I like most of the music. I really like A World Without Heroes. I see that people are saying that that's embarrassing online. I think it's really good. And yes, Lou Reed helped write it.
Right. And it's also, to me, the soft side of Gene. That's the best song of that.
If Gene is singing that song, I'm going to give him a lot of credit because I think the vocals on that song sound really good.
Yep.
And it's the one song redone. They did it on Unplugged, and that's the only other time they ever played an Elder song live, other than after they initially did the run on Friday.
I think this is some of Gene's best work, some of his best vocals, some of his best lyrics, because everybody knows you listen to a lot of these lyrics and you cringe. There is really nothing on Music from the Elder that makes me cringe lyrically. Everything seems to fit the concept. It's not like put my hand in your pocket, grab onto my rocket. We don't have anything here like that.
Well, I think that's because
it's much more mature, and I think it wears better.
This story was his, right? And this is far removed from the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So he stayed the course with this rather than going off the rails and doing some kind of dumb sex song.
Right.
So I noticed in the song Odyssey, they actually use the word luminescent in the lyrics. And I just thought that's so un-Kiss-like.
Well, the Odyssey is a cover song. That's not a Kiss song. It's Tony Powers.
Yeah,
right,
Tony Powers.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, Tony. Grant should know because Tony Powers wrote "Where the Banana Splits," and I'm not making that up. He wrote that song.
Hey, I'm a big fan of Tony's work because of the Banana Split.
Wow, the tangled webs we weave. That's crazy.
Well, that track is fantastic. Some of the Split's best work, let's just say. And but I think it works well on the Elder, fits right in with the concept. And lyrically, I think it's fine. I there is really nothing about this record I can bitch about, though I wish it was more cohesive. You know, that you could really tell what the story is.
Look, I go back to Gene, who likes to make money. And when they did the reissues, they almost did not do a remaster of this album. At this point, you know Kiss fans are going to buy whatever. Put out an Elder box set, restored to what it was supposed to be, add those extra tracks. Then let's have this discussion again when we have the fully realized version. I don't know why they're apprehensive to do that.
But is there really a longer version to put out? There really is that much more that was supposed to go with
there's easily 4 or 5 songs that were left off, and the narration in between, which some people may say that's goofy. But if that gets the story to flow, I want to hear the whole version, right? I don't want to hear The Wall as one disc. If it's not 2, it's not The Wall.
Right.
I think it was
agree with you
100%.
100%.
They took out. It was something like a crazy amount they removed.
So was that a choice of the band, or was that a choice of the record label? Did Polygram come in and go, all right, boys, I'm not really behind this. Can we edit this a bit more so we can get like one album out? I mean, was that the Polygram coming in?
Somebody's book, I can't remember one of their books. I think it might have been Gene's. I don't know who somebody's, but they would say like when they first played the Elder for the record executive, it was just like dead silence. They were like, "What are the guitars? You know, what happened to the guitars?" They were like, so they were not behind this. After the hearing that, I imagine they weren't behind it at all. So they weren't.
And I swear, at one point, I read that there was going to be a second part. So had the first part been a success, I don't know if there's a second one coming up. Like I said, this version is the fan thing. I don't know how true all of that is, but that's expanded into 2 discs. So I think it could have easily been a much longer album. And again, we have a different conversation, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, we're just looking at it as it is presently.
You know, should I go?
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Getting back to some of the tracks, I think the Dark Light's fun. It's kind of got this like Jaws riff on the fade in. It's kind of going do 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 do, and then it's got like a cowbell. Maybe it's a woodblock. I have a hard time telling the difference sometimes, but yeah, I know there's an ace solo on that song, and there's a big guitar solo breakdown with like bongos and stuff. I liked that song.
Bongos.
Mr. Blackwell. Okay. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Nah, I don't like it. Yeah, it's all right. Nah, I don't like. Gosh, I just can't decide. And I thought it was about. I just assumed it was about a record executive named Mr. Blackwell because that's what the lyrics totally seem like. Like they're just trying to cut somebody down that like did them wrong. But then I don't know. I was looking into it, and it seems like that's not really the case. And I've seen it suggested that Lou Reed was saying the villain should be named Blackwell, like a well of ink, black as night, or something to that effect. And that's how they came up with the name, but I don't know. I just wanted to say also, though, that I think Escape from the Island is a lot of fun. And I think the song I is really heavy. I think it's the best moment on the album. And I dig that song.
I might put that song in my top 10 favorite Kiss songs. I love that song.
Yeah, that's a good song.
One.
It's all right.
And Eric Carr didn't play on that though and he was really bummed. They had to get somebody else to play on that because he wasn't getting the feel of it for whoever the producer, I guess Bob Ezrin felt he wasn't getting the right feel of it. So
I find that
Eric
hard
Carr
to believe. Like he's such a good drummer. The fact that I believe that's what happened, but like
he was really
so
bummed about
underrated.
it.
Yeah.
He was bummed about it. Gene or somebody's book says he was really bummed about it, that he couldn't please the producer. He couldn't get it. So he was really bummed. But I also say that the Kiss's look on this, their new look on this, is probably also a bit of a shock to especially Gene with the braid and Paul on the
They look
headband.
like Loverboy with makeup.
But then when Paul has these big pearls on or something, like these big brown.
The biggest mistake Paul did was he borrowed Olivia Newton-John's headband on this.
Yeah, right. So that kind of didn't make them look too rock and roll. It doesn't, and I don't think it really goes along with the concept. I don't know it. The concept of the elders, like you expect them maybe to have some kind of costuming, and maybe to them they did, but to us, I don't really see it on there. I don't see any connection to the album with the costuming necessarily.
Davey brings up a good point about having alternating vocals by Gene and Paul, which only you does as well. That's something I don't think they did enough in their whole career, and on both of those songs, it worked really well.
Back in the day, it worked really well. I'm glad they brought it back for this because it does work. I love when they bounce off each other. There was also a Blackwell who recorded executive. It could be Chris Blackwell.
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah. There are a couple of famous Blackwells. One of them was a fashion critic, and one of them was a record producer.
Well, I'm looking at the poll, ladies and gentlemen, and most people think that this was career suicide, and they're not giving the middle finger to the people. Gene and Paul were very into this project. Ace, was checked out. I think what Ace does give to this record is fantastic. The only tracks I think Ace played on were the ones that he's on, his vocals, or he wrote it. I think he's not on the whole thing. I don't know. Didn't Paul Stanley play some solos too?
I think he did the solo for World Without Heroes.
Yeah.
I think so. In the video, Ace is playing the acoustic guitar and Paul's playing the solo.
Ace was snowblind, but I think it's good. I have no problem with what Ace brought to the table on this record. I don't have any problem. It just sounds more like the White Album for me. What happened? Does anybody know real quick why the movie soundtrack? I mean, this was a movie soundtrack. What happened with the deal with the film? Or did it ever make it that far?
It was in development, and this tanked so quickly they just scrapped the whole thing.
I don't think it even was in development. I think the whole idea was like this album's going to be so big where someone's going to just come along and give us a deal and we're going to make a movie out of it. But it just never happened. I know there were a lot of talks during the writing process of a movie.
I know, like,
but
stars on here, like on this, like Christopher Makepeace, I know has been some movies. I've seen him in a few movies. And he's listed on here for, I guess his voice was on there. So they maybe, there was.
Let me say this. It was in development in Gene's mind. How's that sound?
There you go.
Yeah. It was an idea. And he was like, I want to make a movie. And then Bob Ezrin came in and said, no, let's just make a concept album. And doing my research, that's kind of the way I saw it happen.
But I still go back to this, though. Tell me that this is much better than The Elder. And I'm going to say you're wrong. I think The Elder is a better record than
Unmasked. It's a better record. Because for one.
So this is career suicide.
Well, but people were, the thing is that people were used to Dynasty. This is, Unmasked is like Dynasty Part 2, only even lighter.
Yeah.
And by that time, I think that, they did the whole disco thing, and that might have been too much for the.
You talk about
Kiss
Unmasked.
Army.
Unmasked is also, you're talking about it being a white album. Like they were isolated on a lot of their tracks on that album. Like Gene was doing his own thing on his. Ace was pretty much, Peter Criss wasn't on it at all. Ace was playing bass and stuff on his tracks, I think. So that's an album of isolation.
Holy Jesus. What
worrying about
is happening?
involvement from everybody else. I don't believe in any of really. So.
Can I throw out one positive thing that no one can take away about the Elder, and that is it went gold in Norway. I'm serious.
You have to sell like 150 copies to go gold in Norway.
175.
So let's go around. I was just going to say, when I look at this, I think this album, I don't think that Kiss really cared about what the fans were going to think at this point. I think they were in such a bad place that they were just concerned about doing something creative. They've always heard about the critics critiquing them for just churning out basic rock and roll. And they thought, well, I think that they just responded to the critics. And I think it was a success when I listen to it now. But at the time, 1981, Kiss was just not a big, draw anymore. Their time had come. And I look at it now, I think it's fine. But at the time, I just think it's timing, and like I said before, the band thought it was just horrible. Paul Stanley thought that the songs were forced. The songs weren't that great. But when I listen to it, I think the songs are fantastic. I don't know. But it didn't sell, so they're going to dog it,
Well, I look at this as like Never Die by Black Sabbath. People love it now. And you got to remember, this is like, you got to think of the time period. People, the fans of Kiss, a couple years earlier, man, they were giving us some great stuff. And now what is this? It's the same with Black Sabbath and Never Say Die. And I've heard Martin say many times, it's because we like this stuff now because we've listened to everything else. We're tired of everything else. And then all of a sudden people go, oh, what's this album? Oh, yeah, I've never really checked this out. Oh, this is.
I will say in 20 years, we're going to be saying the same thing about Lulu. We're going to look back finally.
Ashley says Creatures was returned to form. I disagree with that 100%. No. Kiss is going into a direction they'd never been before. This is where Kiss, instead of leading the pack and doing what they normally do, they just join ranks with everything else that was out at the time. This is where they lost their identity as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not saying it's a good album or bad album. I'm just saying they become followers at this point. Because the Elder, think about Music for the Elder in 1981, that's a pretty bold move. They're just doing what they want to do. By the time Creatures is in, they're beaten down. We're just going to follow the trends of the 80s. Now, I'm not trying to say it's a bad record. I'm just saying.
I love
The Elder is like the last real Kiss album to me.
Yeah. Creatures was chasing the heaviness that was coming, and then they quickly switched and started chasing the hair metal thing too. So again, Gene is always going to be one to cash in, and if that means he follows instead of leads, he's okay with that, and I'm okay with it too if you make good music, right?
Right, I'm with you. So anyway, let's go around. What, Alex? You already like this record. So, but how do you look at it? This was definitely career suicide, even though I think it's faring better now. I think it's attained a cult status with the fans, and I think people look at it a lot, not so harshly as they once did. I mean, do you remember back in the day, what was your thoughts on this when you heard it, when you first heard it?
By the time I first heard it, I was just absorbing all Kiss at one time because I was finally buying the albums. And it was fine with me. I didn't have a reason to dislike it. I didn't follow them album by album up to this point. So when I got into them, I bought a bunch at one time and it all blended together to me.
All right. Jay's got a good point. Go around the panel. What's everybody's favorite track from the album? I will say Dark Light is my favorite track. Alex, Elder, keep going.
Eyes, an easy one for me.
Elder?
Dark Light. I'll say Dark Light.
Definitely. Dave?
I'm going to go either The Oath or I.
All right. Brendan?
Under the Rose easily.
See, there's not a bad track on this record.
Under the Rose is a great song.
That chorus, man. That chorus.
That song sounds like they were trying to put a little Rush into their sound.
Yeah, I could hear that. Yeah. Also, the near Only You and a riff in there got reused in a Black and Blue song called "Nasty Nasty," I believe. Right. So yeah,
Probably.
I think only you totally sounds like Rush too, especially at about the 2-minute mark. That was the two where I was like, these songs sound like Rush. Only You and Under the Rose.
I think
Here's what I'll say about these songs individually. If they were put on one of these box sets as bonus tracks that never were released, I think everyone would say, wow, these are good songs.
Oh, yeah, I think this is the beautiful thing of The Elder. I think the tracks stand up on their own. You don't need them on an album concept. I think that the songs are some of the best they've ever written. I definitely think it's some of Gene's best work ever. And the songs stand up on their own, where maybe some Kiss albums, if you take them apart, they don't stand up as much. But I think this does stand up if you dissect it. I'm going to start asking people in the chat if you have heard this record, and I'm going to throw it out to the panel here. I want to get your rating out of 10, because all we are in the Warehaus is just trying to turn you on to stuff and talking about Kiss the Elder. Either you like it or you don't. There's really no in between. So I am going to throw it out to everybody in the chat. And in fact, anybody on the panel can chime in. What's everybody think in the chat out of 10? What is your rating of The Elder if you're going to recommend it to somebody?
Brandon, before you do that, can I just say, I said you're the youngest person here. When did you come into Kiss, and when did you first discover this album?
In high school. We're talking like 2016. And I started with the debut and worked my way up. And when I got to this record, I was horrified. I never returned to it until like recently, until like
Do you like it now?
Days ago.
Do you like it now?
I like it a little more. I think it's a bad album though.
No,
were you okay with the solo albums? No.
The Ace one's the best one easily,
Yeah.
but Gene is no.
Okay.
Like Unmasked, the thing is, I feel like they could have bounced back from that. This is like, talk about like writing yourself into a corner. Like this comes off to me as like just a parody of a concept album. It's like what Spinal Tap would have done, but there's no jokes in it. Like
but the crazy thing is,
I don't hear it that way at all. I don't hear it that way at all.
I think Under the Rose is the most Spinal Tap song on there.
The crazy thing with Kiss is they did bounce back then, right? So they had this, it's like AC/DC. They had a high with Back in Black, then Let There Be Rock, and then all of a sudden we get Flick the Switch, Fly on the Wall, and they're kind of forgotten about. And then a couple years later, they come back. So Kiss still survived this and really thrived after it. So, you know, career suicide to me means you never come back from that. And they certainly did.
I'll argue I don't think they did until they went on their legacy run of like, all right, we got everyone in the old makeup again, and we're just going to tour our legacy stuff. Because like after this, it was just constantly trying to figure out the new thing. Like they take the makeup off, they're doing grunge, they're doing glam. Motley Crue blew them out of the water.
See, they didn't know they lost their way.
But at least those hair metal
until they went to
80s,
Brazil.
The hair metal albums at 80s at least went back to platinum. So they at least got their sales back. Because like I said, you know, this isn't a band that ever sold 10 or 20 million and then went down to 1. They fluctuated between gold and 2 million. So it wasn't that much time out of that.
I agree for that for sure, you know, but like it was just playing a game of catch up, you know, like the audience started to die and everyone was getting in their head. I know reading interviews where you know, being backstage with them during the Creatures era and stuff, they were just a mess. Creatures, I do want to say it's a great record, but it's a glam metal album.
But the thing I have a problem with Creatures is that, yeah, it's a Kiss album, but does it really sound like a Kiss album? It sounds nothing like Rock and Roll Over. Sounds nothing like Love Gun. It could have been anybody playing those parts.
Well, remember, Vinnie Vincent had a big part of that album.
Who?
Vinnie Vincent came in with that, so he helped change that sound.
Maybe, or was it the producer? See, the thing with Ace Frehley is that he had an identifiable technique. He had an identifiable sound. I've always said that Ace Frehley is really the sound of Kiss, because look at Creatures. You've even got Gene, you've got Paul on there, but where's the sound? It could be anybody. It could be anybody. They've lost their tonality. And Ace Frehley, I've always said that. He was the heart and soul of Kiss. And once he was gone, they lost something. Sure, maybe the songs are great, but where's that Kiss sound? It's gone. Just saying. And they still had it on Music from the Elder because Ace is playing guitar. It sounds like it's got that tone.
The bottom line is any money they lost from lack of sales of the Elder, they made up for in sales of Kiss coffins. So it's a wash.
It's a wash.
And all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Creatures of the Heavy Duty album, but it could be anybody. There is what made Kiss sound like Kiss is gone, and that is Ace Frehley. And Peter Criss. I think Peter Criss had a lot to do with the sound. The way, he had that swing to it. The thing that made Kiss so great was the chemistry of the original band. After that was dissolved, they lost it. But hey, I'm not saying they didn't put any bad. I'm not saying they put out bad records. I'm just saying what made Kiss is gone.
That always happens. You got to have the original lineup, man.
Right. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if you talk to Paul and Gene, that's the original lineup. Paul and Gene.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, whatever. But
speaking of Paul and Gene, one thing I noticed is that when I was listening to them talk about making the Elder, and they said that it was Bob Ezrin's idea to please the critics, and they had never really tried that before. So that's what they were going for. And he convinced them that it was important to please the critics. And so they decided to try.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, it doesn't matter if Eric Carr was a better drummer. It has nothing to do with it. Who cares? You show me Peter Criss playing drums, and I know it's Peter Criss. Eric Carr, I'm not sure I could pick him out. I don't know. There was something about that original lineup. That's all I'm saying.
It's funny because you read interviews of the band when they were making this record, and even Eric Carr was skeptical at first, but when he started, he was like, I'm really into this. The only one who wasn't was Ace. And then when the reality set in, then they started being like, I don't want this. I didn't like it. Like, it completely flipped. The making of this record, they were just all in. Yeah. They completely changed the story.
And remember, Eric didn't have a vote. There were 3 members who had a vote, and it was always 2 against 1. Ace was always against the other 2, and it didn't matter. So they were all for it, as you say, until it became a flop, and then they were against it.
Yeah, he didn't have Peter on his side, or they weren't equal anymore. So I would have bailed too, because how's he going to ever get anything? His vote means nothing, And
Ezrin wasn't on his side either. So there was also that. There was issues between Ezrin and Ace, and the album started in Ace's studio. Then he went to Canada. He didn't go along with them. So there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
Also, the concept sucks. Like the story.
Could
someone explain the whole story?
If we had the whole thing, we might be able to understand it.
Well, okay, so it's the most bare bones,
can you understand
hero's journey.
Can you understand Tommy?
Brandon's got it. It's just hero's journey. It's just boy grows up and is the chosen one and must fight the Mr. Blackwell.
Even the concept alone, Gene, the only reason why he came up with this concept was he was just trying to get into Hollywood. That's it. Mm-hmm. He's not this wasn't a passion. This wasn't a vision. You look at Tommy, you look at the wall, it's like there was such a vision behind that, where this was just Gene being like, well, I wanted to get into Hollywood. And then, Ezrin was like, well, I know how to do it. We got to turn it into this. And
look at who you're talking about too, the Who and Pink Floyd, right? Heady stuff. Kiss isn't. So this was Gene. Simplistic is a good way to put it, Brandon. His other songs that he wrote, non-concept album, were simplistic. So of course this story is going to be simplistic as well. So yeah, this isn't highbrow stuff coming out of Gene. This was the best he could do.
Unfortunately, it's bad. It's like these guys are essentially space demons. They're essentially space demons. The idea of a Kiss concept album, how the potential there, yet we're getting it's starting with that song that sounds like something from Sun Forest. Like, what is going on? You know, it's like this medieval world, and then there's a siren, you know, at Skip the Island. It's like, like nothing seems connected.
What
Well,
island?
if they were smart, they could have done a concept album about themselves, right? Years later, we get all these Kiss comic books, and the central theme is the band and the band on these
Right.
adventures and things. So yes, they could have done that versus coming up with something that was removed from the band themselves.
I guarantee,
Hindsight, right? Yeah,
I agree, and I guarantee with the you know context of the story, it still would have been awful. Like,
And also,
just everything we know about it, it's just so
No.
like generic, bare bones. A boy, you know, is destined to become the one who defeats evil. It's just like there's a million movies that are just that. I don't know. There needs to be more to it.
Do we know if Kiss themselves were going to appear in this movie? I've never, you know, were they
Oh, no.
like?
I don't know.
With
I
their
don't think
egos?
so.
You never got that far.
I mean, I can't imagine them not wanting to be in it somehow. But then at that time, they were in their makeup. So what would they be? You know,
Kiss
Well,
me
it
some
says
Phantom.
Gene's
So-
story for the Elder was 2 pages.
Right.
Look, we got Kiss in a movie a few years earlier. I don't think we want to see that again.
No,
I
we
bet,
don't.
yeah, and I think that would have been like a better concept. You know, this is like literally, it's like AI generated. It is it's something you can think of in 2 seconds. It's the most generic fantasy story in existence.
Mhm.
But I believe in me, man. Come on.
Yeah, and that's
Like-
how it ends. No, just believe in yourself. You know, it's like, what are we like? Quite Shakespeare. You know, modern Shakespeare, I guess.
well, you know, it's
Right.
like, so if you think about it, it's a Star Wars ripoff. You know, the Chosen One
Mhm.
fighting evil against, you know, and all this. It's somewhat of a Star Wars ripoff in the concept there. You know.
Well, look, if we're talking about concept albums, Brandon,
Yes.
not everything can be Lulu.
No.
I will cut off my tits.
Thank God.
My God. So has everybody in the comments in the peanut gallery gave us your rating out of 10? I'm going to have to, we are 52 minutes in. We're going to wrap this dog up. Alex, what's your rating out of 10?
On a Kiss scale, right?
Yes.
And
Well,
to me,
yes. Kiss
Destroyer
scale.
being a 10. My Destroyer's my 10. I'll give it a 7 just because I wish it was worked out more and it probably would be higher. But a 7, I still very much like it.
All right. Elder?
I'm gonna give it a 6.
God, it's not looking good. Everybody else is giving this a 6. Now, West Coast Dave, who is new to the Kiss world.
I only listened to this album within the past couple weeks or so.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna go. I put 7 and then I crossed it out and went 6.5.
Okay, that's fine. Now, I'm afraid to even ask Brandon, but we'll ask him.
For the falsettos alone, I have to do 5. And I'm being
Nice.
very generous, and I'm looking at this as a album, not as a Kiss album, as just an album. Trying to be fair. The falsettos delivering a line after like being kicked in the balls, like it just sounds so awful.
I'm
And
going to
it's-
give 2 ratings. I'm going to give it rating as a Kiss album. The way I look at this record is I applaud them for going out on a ledge and breaking tradition. Of course, they did that on Dynasty. They did a disco song, and me and my friends, we welcomed it. We didn't think twice about it. But they really went out on a ledge, and they just, I don't think they worried about what the reaction would be. They were more worried about the reaction from the critics, and the critics went boo-hoo. They didn't like it. But I like this record. If I would say, if I'm comparing this with other records, okay, maybe give it I really like this record though. This is kind of hard. As a Kiss album, I love that they went out on a ledge and were creative, and the songs stand up by themselves. I'm going to give it a 9. I don't care. I like it. I like it as a Kiss album. Now, as a regular album with other stuff, maybe because let's be honest, Kiss albums weren't like God's gift to nature. It's not like, I think Kiss albums are fine. If you just like good rock and roll, you don't have to think about. This is much more of a thinking man's record. It's not something that you just take in on the initial listen. I don't know. I'd probably give it a 7 on the Kiss scale, But I like this record. When I go to a Kiss album, this is the one I would go to. I swear to God. Ace Frehley alone on his guitar work, fantastic. If you haven't heard it, gee, many Christmas.
I really dig all the guitar playing on this album, and I've never honestly listened to Ace Frehley and been like, whoa, that's really cool. I've always wanted to be impressed by him, but he just always left me kind of flat. But I really do like all the guitar playing on this album.
Yeah.
I just want to say also,
go ahead.
Real quick, Just a Boy, the song, the pre-chorus on that song is one of my favorite Kiss moments of all time. And then it just gets completely ruined with the falsetto.
The falsetto, yeah.
Oh, I know, Webb.
Yeah.
I love that.
I know.
Falsetto. I love that. That's awesome.
That's my least
Lee
favorite
wants to know
moment
when
on
you
the
got
entire
that
record.
T-shirt. Where'd you get that T-shirt?
Who? Me?
Lee wants to know where you got the yellow shirt.
Public. TEE Public. You can get all kind of amazing shirts there for $16 a piece. Sorry, Gene.
Well, that's where you can get Grant's Rock Warehouse merch, ladies and gentlemen.
Correct.
Right.
And Disturbing the Priest.
And Disturbing the Priest.
Yes, I get 50 cents profit for everyone sold. So
Right.
Grant, how do you feel about the falsettos on this record? Because there's so many, and it's like
I don't mind the falsettos at all. No.
And of course you've seen the Friday clips where he's doing them live, right?
I'd have to rewatch that.
He can't even sing them. His voice cracks. It's crazy.
Well, Paul needs a studio.
Pretty hard, especially on the song "Just a Boy."
All right, kids, I'm going to calculate this. We've got a lot of scores. I've got everybody's where everyone weighed in for this show. We're going to calculate and see what we have.
It's like a 6.75.
It's a 6.7. We rounded up. Kind of close there, but not quite. Webb was here. Webb can nail it perfectly. Webb's like a little math minion.
666. I was just going to ask your rating. Webb.
See, he got I guess it was 6C. Damn close.
Kings in Satan's service.
How do you do that, Webb?
I thought it was Knights in Satan's service.
Well, anyway,
either way.
I've heard both.
I don't think this is a bad record. I'm happy with a 6.7. It's kind of in the middle, but it's better than average. So I'm fine with that. Everybody voted. So I would recommend this to somebody. Maybe not to start out, but if you're a Kiss fan, I think you definitely need it.
Not to start out. I wouldn't. I don't know how far I would say. I would say just to somebody wanting to get into Kiss, just prepare yourself for this album. So,
Body says, "What does the lawn rate it?" Webb, what does your yard rate this record? Cretan loves this record. He gave it a 9. I like you, Cretan. All right, kids, we can wrap it up. We are at 58 minutes in. Anybody have anything you want to promote? Brendan, what's happening in your world, in the podcast world?
Disturbing the Priest, a lot of great content on the way, a lot of great interviews, and just general music content on YouTube, Disturbing the Priest, and all platforms, Spotify, everywhere. You can listen to the show as well.
Damn, that's fantastic. Alex, what's happening with you? What's
YouTube channel, Tainted Decibels. Tainted Decibels. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I know what Dave and the Elder are doing. So, all right. Is there anything else? Is there anything? Well, Elder's got a channel. Go ahead, Elder.
No, just saying, check out the Elder of Rock. Got some
right.
stuff up there.
Is there anything else you guys are on that you want to promote real quick? Anything else coming up?
Nothing right now. This is the last thing I have on the calendar. We'll see.
Cretan's coming to the 9.5. Did I get that? Oh, I did get a 9.5. I see it. I've got your 9.5.
Well, we're
All right.
doing this show next month, right?
What are we doing?
This show next month, different album.
We need to figure out an album. We could do that right now, real quick.
Hold Your Fire, Nostradamus.
Oh, I would love to do that.
The Final Cut, Pink Floyd.
Final Cut.
Oh, Final Cut would be good too.
This is why I drink on this show. Is there an album? It's all torture. This is like Grant's torture chamber for me. Every time I've been on it, it's been. Is there? I think there's only one. Born Again's like the only like controversial one I like, but there's so
Body
so
says
many.
a Scorpions album. I love the Scorpions.
Eye to Eye.
What about The Astonishing by Dream Theater?
Oh, I hate Dream Theater. We're not doing Dream Theater.
Surprisingly, you might like it, is what I would think.
I can't sit through it. I want to kill myself.
I think I would make my.
I do not like
by Megadeth.
prog metal. I hate it.
Grant, have you heard Risk by Megadeth?
No.
No. It's not a
Steely
it's not a metal
Dan.
album at all, really.
Steely Dan. Oh, well, come on. Steely Dan's all good. Nostradamus.
Isn't that like a 2-hour album?
Yeah.
Well, we looked at it on the Contrarians, but I can't remember what we
I
did.
remember we did it on the Contrarians, but not here. I'm so.
Risk is 3.5. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you cover a record that you've covered before. Because I've talked about The Elder, but not in this type of panel situation. So
And not with this panel.
no, right.
It's an
So
all-star panel right here.
Never Say Die by Sabbath. I love that album. Everyone hates it.
Oh, I already did a contrarian show about that. Went back and forth about that so many times. I mean, I
Cheap
guess
Tricks the
we can-
Doctor. Oh God. Yeah, I would do that
Chinese
in a
democracy.
second.
I would totally do that. I know Chinese democracy.
I think I would do that because I think the
love
last time
Buckethead.
I
That's-
heard it, I thought it was really good.
I like it too.
Is that what everybody wants to do? Alex, what do you think?
What I didn't hear. What did you say?
Chinese democracy.
Oh, sure. I'm down with that.
Elder?
Sure.
All right, let's look. I like that record, but let me look at it again. So yeah, let's do that. I think that would be a good one. Brendan, you're good?
I'm good. I'm good for
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will send dates out. We will be doing Chinese democracy. We will be doing GNR on the channel. You would thought you'd never see that. But actually, you guys heard those tracks that were recorded during Chinese democracy that came out much later?
Yeah.
Those are fantastic.
I think they're good. I like the album. You don't like it,
You
Alex?
don't like them, Alex? No.
Good. We need some
good.
dissension here. Come on.
All right, we're going to do, you never thought you'd see it here in the warehouse, but we're going to do GNR. All right, kids, gentlemen, thank you. We ended up with a 6.7. So I'm good with that. Alex, the Elder, Dave, Brendan, we will be back next month. Keep it clean, everybody. Wrap the rascal. And look at that. Look at Dave. That's scary. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Please leave a thumbs up if you can. All right, see you, everybody.